Bungie has been doing some bold things here lately. One of them was asking for PvP feedback directly from the Destiny 2 team and their Twitter accounts. Happy Twid Day Guardians. We would like to hear from all of you PvP players out there on what kind of changes to the Crucible you would like to see in the future, whether it's playlist preferences, matchmaking settings, trials, competitive. Please post your feedback below. And boy, did they get a lot of feedback. Everybody has been writing in this thing, and some of them are pretty bad. No lie, I'm just saying. Leave it to D2 PvP players, man, that drop some of the worst suggestions I have ever read in my life. At the same time, there are some absolute gems in here that would substantially improve Destiny overall. Some of the universal things, though, that I have seen throughout this entire thread includes removal of the AE system, that being airborne effectiveness. And so many people, man, have said this just needs to go. We've made a number of videos about AE, and Bungie has essentially walked it back a number of times, but AE exists in the game. And it's one of those things that I feel like Bungie is just so married up to it at this point that, guys, I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna walk it back. And I understand why it existed. Bungie was really concerned that Strand was gonna make AE gameplay get way out of hand with the whole grapple thing. But in my opinion, it was overtuned way too much, which impeded the one thing that has made Destiny one of the best games over the past decade, it being the gunplay. This AE system is messing with that magic formula, which is why Bungie has walked things back. And what's being asked of now by the PvP community at large is that entire system be walked back completely. Now, the second most voted thing that I've seen has been the removal of skill-based matchmaking from quick play. Everyone wants a social playlist, that being our 6v6 game mode, and that it primarily just needs to be connection-based matchmaking. Now listen, I get the pain here. Every single time I jump inside of 6v6, I've got every Guardian in that lobby sweating their balls off. And it's just this ruthless system where the better you do, the harder your games get. And there is a place where that makes sense. That's called comp. We're going to talk about comp in a little bit, but that's competitive. That's where that's supposed to take place. Not in 6v6, man. Not when we're just trying to chill. A social playlist is supposed to be a fun playlist. It's not meant to be a place in which you sweat. The problem is, guys, is that the social playlist exists for free-to-play players to jump in. And the last thing Bungie wants is for a new player jumping into the game, playing in that playlist, and immediately getting shit on by some uber sweat that they shouldn't be playing against at all. Now, in this situation, I actually wish Bungie could separate the pools and say, give that skill-based matchmaking experience for like a Guardian's first 5 games, right? Let them get in there. Let them get their toes wet. Let them experience going up against players that are matching their skill level. But then after those 5 games, it's connection-based matchmaking, and you're in the same pool with all of us. Now, the other side of things is I'm not looking at Bungie's data. I am curious to know like how badly connection-based matchmaking over skill-based matchmaking in a social playlist erodes the playlist. Listen, guys, I understand my PvP players out there, but we need to know this data. I would like to know this data. The problem is that there's so many variables for that data. Like when you think about it, in the season that connection-based matchmaking existed for our social playlist, what if that season was just not a good season? And so overall player retention dipped off for everything. But if you were just looking at the PvP data, you would say, hey, looky there, connection-based matchmaking is bad. That's why we need SBMM. You see the issue here? But logically thinking things through, I feel like a social playlist is supposed to be what it is, a social playlist. It's really, really bad when normal 6v6 is sweatier than comp. I'm literally like, yo, guys, I'm gonna go play comp because it's less stressful. At least there I can manage playing against 3 sweats. When you're playing against 6 and Bungie puts 5 Kindergardians on your team, like what the hell? What is this balance you speak of, Bungie? And so the problem runs deeper than just skill-based matchmaking. It also comes down to win percentage. Bungie wants you to have a 50% win rate. They see you start edging up, they're like, oh no, this guy's getting 51%. We need to deal with him getting a little out of hand. Have you ever jumped in Destiny PvP, played all afternoon, and thought to yourself, wow, I have lost every game today? Don't worry about it, man. That's the system. You see, you got a little too crazy yesterday. You won too many times. Today, it's time to get humbled, get good. Now, the third requested thing that I've seen, a lot of people said, is to destroy Antaeus wards. Now listen, I'm a Titan main, but even that damn exotic pisses me off. And I'm not talking about the fucker that knifed me in the face over and over. He was an anomaly who happened to be named Antaeus wards. No, I'm talking about the exotic Antaeus wards. The thing that literally wins gunfights for no reason. It's an exotic that blocks everything when you slide with no drawbacks. And I know Bungie's like, but wait, your Guardian's sliding. You kind of have a harder time to aim while while sliding, right? Wrong. Who the hell doesn't slide in this game? My balls are on the ground 24/7. Every game I play now, I have to slide because of Destiny. I am addicted to sliding. So when you give me an exotic that's like, hey, here's the thing. The skill ceiling to take advantage of this exotic is pretty high. You see, you'll gain instant immunity to everything, but you have to slide. Dude, what PvP player wouldn't use that? It's been annoying, and it needs to be dealt with, Bungie. Please kill it with fire now. Number 4, something that I know will never happen, but we're gonna throw it on the list. But guys, it's never gonna happen. Map voting. There are still people asking for this. And look, I was guilty of it in the past. The issue is, guys, is that in order to have map voting, you need maps. Look, I know I'm taking a jab right now, and we are getting maps, but keep in mind, that's next year. Don't get ahead of yourself. If you're like, dude, why do I keep playing the same map every other game? It's because that's all that's in rotation, man. No lie, guys, map voting really would be amazing. Just because you would have the option to choose. The issue with maps currently in Destiny is that, at least from what I've seen, maps are actually a way Bungie controls the meta. They want to up those scout rifle numbers, suddenly you're getting disjunction every game. They want to see shotgun usage drop off, no more anomaly. Maps should not dictate sandbox. It doesn't matter in a 6v6 environment, in my opinion. I know that Bungie has their data values and they have expected kills, where everything should be sitting, usage rates, but at the end of the day, in a social playlist environment, we just want to play some fun maps and not the same thing over and over. At the same time, I also understand that PvP players lack imagination. And I know this because I see the same PvP players running the same meta every single season. And I also know those same players will vote Javelin literally every game, which is so boring. At the end of the day, Bungie, if you're not going to give us map voting, at least make it to where all the maps are in rotation and that the waiting for those maps are completely removed. We have seen in the past that waiting does exist on maps. They even admitted that Disjunction had a much higher waiting way back when, which is exactly why you got Disjunction every other game. So yes, best case scenario, and I mean the best case scenario, would be map voting. I don't think we're gonna get it, but in the least, remove waiting from maps, or if you are gonna add waiting to maps, add it to the good ones, and you know which ones I'm talking about. Number 5, rewards, as in better rewards and more rewards. And I will say, Bungie, yes, you guys are pretty stingy. There are so many ways you can incentivize PvP play without enraging the PvE player base. And that's the issue, right? Bungie doesn't want to force PvE players to jump in PvP. Every time there was ever an exotic quest way back when that involved anything inside of PvP, PvE players would lose their mind. However, there have been some great suggestions on this front. What if the competitive playlists or trials dropped Artifice Armor? Huh? I'm just saying. I actually think Drewski and Cammy both suggested this alongside Ascendant Alloys. Kuja even mentioned that the overall adept drop rate inside of trials needs to be increased, stating that a Grandmaster Nightfall gives both a shard and an adept every single run, which can be done anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes. And that's not even optimizing, right? Some Nightfalls you can get even less than that. But it goes on to state that trials needs that tier 3 reckoning system, that being a guaranteed adept every 2 wins on a 7-win card. Considering most games take 5 to 10 minutes long, this would put trials adept loot on par with Grandmaster Nightfalls. And guys, that's all we're asking for. We're not asking to replace loot sources from PvE or even to outdo PvE and their loot economy. What we're asking for is to get close to it, to kind of match it. And I do think every 2 wins on a trials card, considering you have to get 2 wins, is more than fair to get an adept drop. Also, adding Artifice Armor into the mix, dude, I would stay in the playlist all weekend long, right? And again, for my PvE players, you still got dungeons. You could still go and get Artifice Armor from dungeons. I think for me, this would just be a nice alternative. I like doing dungeons. I'm gonna go farm dungeons, but at the same time, it would also be nice to be able to get that same benefit inside of PvP, especially in a playlist like Trials. But overall, better rewards would be amazing. And you've seen how many people are willing to play PvP for an extended amount of time for good loot. Look what people did when Immortal was dropping. Everybody was going for that weapon, and that's good. You got to have desirable loot. And I know Bungie's really concerned about creating another Recluse scenario or a Luna's Howl Not Forgotten scenario, but it's okay to have good PvP weapons obtainable in PvP. Now, Now, number 6, cheaters. And I'm not talking about the people that are obviously cheating. I mean, the people that are using any type of third-party software or hardware. Bungie, you cannot beat around the bush on this. I know you've stated in the past, but you have got to target folks that are using both Cronus and Zims, alongside any other software-related cheat programs that folks are using. And this is not something that's just affecting Destiny. This is affecting so many other games, but it's going to greatly affect Marathon. So your system that's being put in place right now, Bungie, that system needs to target all cheats. And I know my Zim users and my Cronus users are all like, but Cross, my accessibility. Look, we did an entire video on this. We went over everything already. You're full of shit. You're using it because you don't want recoil. You're using it because you want aim assist on your mouse and keyboard. And I will say, Bungie, if you do not deal with this and deal with it now, it is going to plague your new PvP game right out the gates. That being Marathon. Now, number 6, something that has been said from a lot of trial players is the removal of Fireteam-based matchmaking inside of trials, as well as the comp playlist, but especially trials. Now, this one's a weird area because, again, we used to have a solo playlist only. Bungie removed that. They've consolidated everything into one playlist, and it's Fireteam-based matchmaking, meaning if you're in a team of 3, you should be facing another team of 3. At the same time, if you're a solo player, you should either A, be facing a number of other solo players, or in the least, facing a solo and a duo. Now, what this is actually converted to is that the most optimal experience inside of comp and inside of trials is just to play duos. Find one other person that's really good at the game, run inside of duos. This will avoid 3 stacks, leaving them to fight each other, and the only gamble you have here is that your solo will be better than theirs, or at least on par. The issue here is that it is kind of a double-edged sword, because it's really just the duos that are benefiting from this. The solos aren't really benefiting from this, as the duos hardly interact at all with the solo player. They just do their own thing. Whereas back in freelance trials or other freelance modes, you would be playing with all other solo players, putting everyone there on even ground. Now, the suggestion on this is just to remove the option to duo. You're either a solo player or a team of 3. Guys, I don't even know if Bungie could even pull that off. And I know it was suggested here by Frost, and a lot of players definitely agree with Frost on this. I just don't know if that's possible. It's an interesting thought though. Essentially, you're either a solo player or in a team of 3, nothing else, when going into either trials or competitive. Now, before we go any further, I do want to ask, if you can't get that, if we can't get duos removed, how would you feel just getting the freelance playlist back, guys? I know it splits the player base up, but hear me out. It does allow for solo players to just match other solo players. So yeah, it may not make the experience for teams of 3 better, but it definitely does make the experience for solo players better. It's kind of a lose-lose all around, unless Bungie can remove duos. But then you're gonna have your folks out there that's like, yo, it was hard enough finding 1 guy to play with me. Now you want me to find 2? What the hell, Bungie? So I definitely understand the complications around this. Now, finally, number 7. This is a personal one from me. One of which that I know probably won't happen because everybody is more focused on like core changes that they can make within our given system. But Bungie, I really want you to push the parameters of Destiny 2 PvP. Be bold in new potential game modes and aim for fun. It doesn't always have to be something that can be applicable into a competitive playlist. And for the most part, comp and trials, they pretty much have made their peace. I know they have some issues with showdown and cap points and issues like Well of Radiance and Bubble having too fast of a cooldown. Y'all can work those numbers out. That's whatever. I'm talking about just fun. What happened to Juggernauts back in the day? What happened to Infection game modes back in Halo? What happened to 12v12 big team battle? Relic is actually kind of a good step in that direction. Bungie's trying something different, but half the time you can actually just ignore the Relic and just kill each other. There were hours, and I mean hours, of just playing game modes like Infection. It was hysterical playing Juggernaut, watching someone that literally just could not die, and we all had to team shot that dude, or the chaos that ensues from big team battle. With us having a dedicated PvP team now, I feel like it's okay for us to make requests like this. Bungie, be bold. You've given us fantastic fun playlists in the past that I really feel like would be applicable here for Destiny in a beautiful way. So guys, those are your PvP suggestions. Big shout out to everybody on Twitter. Overall, lots of great suggestions from folks. There was one we left off this list that a lot of people were saying, and that's dedicated servers. But come on, guys. It ain't gonna happen, man. I wish it could, believe me. But that's just one of those that I just don't think will ever happen. Or at least not in Destiny 2. But don't worry, Marathon's got you covered. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.